Previously on Higurashi Wane Cry Kai Chapter 8. It was long. It really was long. Are you okay? Is your spirit still alive? Do we have all the pieces we want lined up on the game board? Is this everything we have that can go up against Takano and her minions in the game of fate in the June of 1983? I think, maybe, we have everything. And last but not least, Hanyu. It's you. The time you have left to be a piece is limited. But that doesn't mean you can't show up in the game. Shall we begin? I put in hundreds of years just for this moment. Chi-sensei gave a cue, and a girl peeked in the room timidly. She is solid!
新しい転校生の古出羽生さんです。今日から皆さんと一緒にお勉強することになりました。
The voices of welcome, delight, and surprise all mixed together and filled the classroom. See, Hanyu? You can make all kinds of crazy shit happen if you just believe in yourself. Believe!
そうじゃなくて、この子、たまに見かけてた気がするの。
Oh, really? Do go on.
羽生か？引っ越し前の下見とかで来た時とかかな。レナって記憶力いいな。
そういうのじゃなくて、羽生ちゃんはもっと前からいて、レナたちのすぐ近くでみんなで遊んでるのをずっと見てた気がするの。ずーっと。あれ？レナだけ？ケイチ君も気づいてたよね。
いや、俺は全然見たことはないんだが、レナは面識があるってことなのか？
From what I can see, this is the first time me and Satoko have met Hanyu. If she's been that close to us, like Reina said, it's impossible that none of us would remember her.
僕も部活に混ぜてもらいたいのです。
She did hear my invitation! Hanyu said loudly, as if to shake off her embarrassment.
こりゃまだ驚いた。どこで誰におじさんたちのことを聞いたのやら。僕も入れてほしいのです。僕も部活に混ぜてほしいなのです。よく自分で言えましたです。パチパチパチ。
Rika-chan must have known that Hanyu wanted to join the club all along. Yukie had laughed and told him he was being paranoid. But that phone call indeed saved her from a calamity. Akasaka had found out about that when he visited her after returning to Tokyo. A few days late after his phone call, a janitor was seriously injured when he stepped on a loose tile on the stairs on his way to the rooftop. He also heard afterwards that Yukie had a habit of going up to the roof for a walk every day. But because of his phone call, she had stopped doing it. If he hadn't called her, she would have been the one to step on the loose tile. In other words, Rika Furude's prediction had been correct. There was no proof, but Akasaka still believed that he was able to save Yukie only because of Rika Furude's prediction. She paid his reward in advance, in the form of foreseeing Yukie's accident. He had to get to her. He had to go save her. A flood of emotions filled him up. He felt as though he had finally remembered something he was never supposed to forget. That's right. He had to go to Hinamizawa. He had to save the girl who asked him for help. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Higurashi Wane Cry Kai Chapter 8. So, my fingers are still crossed that Akasaka is going to show up at some point in this episode. I hope he does, because my fingers are starting to get sore now. Hanyu has already grown used to being around us. Since Rika-chan and Satoko are her age, she's become especially close with them. Of course, Reina and Mion are looking after her too. Reina told me something the day Hanyu joined the class. She said that Hanyu has been close to us for a long time, and that she's been watching us play. That she always wanted to join us. I still can't remember seeing her before. But somehow, I can believe it. Hanyu has accepted all things that surprised me at first, as if she knew about them all along. She knows everything about us. And it seems she's truly excited about finally being able to join in.
羽生もすっかり僕たちの仲間に溶け込みましたのです。
だな。なんだかずっと前からそうだったように感じるよ。
We're still missing Shion, though. Where is she?
そんなはずはないのにな。
そんなことありませんです。ずっと僕たちのそばにいましたですよ。
あれ、リカちゃんもそんなこと言うんだな。レナも言ってたよ。俺だけが気づいてなかったのかな。
圭一は鈍感だからきっと気づかなかったに違いないのです。
Ouch. But she's technically not wrong. So that just stings even more. For you.
みー。
ち、どうせ俺は鈍感ですよだ。
はわわお。リカと圭一が座り込んでいますのです。疲れましたですか？羽生が疲れ知らずなだけなのです。僕たちは遊びすぎてヘトヘトなのですよ。だって僕はずっとみんなと一緒に遊びたかったから、これくらいでは遊び足りないのです。もっともっと遊びますですよ。はわわう。
Just remembered, I want to check Hanyu's sprites. Yep, she still looks like a potato.
元気だな。ところで羽生さ、その頭のそれ。
Although maybe it would be more accurate to say that everybody I've seen in the old art style looks like they suffer from some form of gigantism. At least I think that's the name for the disease.
遊んでて落ちちゃわないのか？
Hanyu has horns on her head. Finally, somebody mentions it! I thought that was a hair accessory of sorts, so I didn't want her to lose it while playing. I was going to offer to hold it for her while she ran around. Hold my horns, mortal! But Hanyu's face clouded over, and she apologetically held onto the horns.
圭一、羽生のは取れませんのです。
え？あ、そうなのか？変なこと言ってごめん。
やっぱり角なんかがあるとおかしいでしょうか。
Well... There's no one else around with horns, last I checked, so... Yes?
おかしくなんかないよ。キュートでかいよ。そうそう。
I'd totally be a complete detriment to the atmosphere if I were actually present here. Geichin even has a horn between his legs, don't she? Well, I suppose he does, doesn't he? Though it's hard to curse, so curse backwards. What kind of horn is between his legs? What kind? I love that it's this line of dialogue that gets censored because there's no voiceover.
相変わらずレナさんのパンチだけは見切れませんわね。大丈夫ですのミオンさん。
I imagine if I had what is it, the voice level at a different number, it would probably look like Reina just punched Mion for no reason or whatever, and I'd just be left here confused as to why it happened. But I'm so glad that this option exists where I can actually see the context behind this shit. And then it just makes me angry that it was censored at all, because fuck you, censors, this was actually funny.
顔面がへこんでますわよ。
Everyone laughed except Hanyu. He didn't seem to get it. Wait. You're older than Rika. How could you not get it? I shouldn't have said anything. I bet she doesn't like to talk about her horns. But if I try to apologize, I think things will get even more complicated. Be a man. Apologize. As I thought about what to say, Reina took the girls over to the shrine gate.
気にしなくていいのですよ。羽生も気にしないようにしているのですが、まだ修行が足りないということなのです。
やっぱ気にしてたんだな。すまん。これからは気をつけるぜ。
羽生は大昔にこのひなみ沢にやってきました。
あ、やっぱりそうだったんだ。だよな。村の中のことを転校生にしちゃ随分詳しかったしな。
羽生がひなみ沢に住む前、どこに住んでいたのかはよく知りません。
I asked her once, but all she said was that it was a place I wouldn't understand. Does it involve a lot of lights? Hanyu said that she, or rather, Hanyu's people, couldn't live there anymore. They looked for a new place to live for a long time. They traveled a very long way before arriving in Hinamizawa. Traveled from where? There was a beautiful swamp in the area, and that was exactly what Hanyu's people were looking for. Are we talking about the swamp that Hinamizawa syndrome is theorized to have come from? You know, I've been wondering for a while now how exactly Hinamizawa syndrome which by all appearances appears to be a biological disease and nothing more, would be able to affect a person's ability to perceive Hanyu, a very clearly supernatural being. That's just... I don't remember if I ever voiced this this little mystery before, but this is one little thing about this whole thing that's really been bugging me for a while now. Every time I think about it. Because obviously these two, they're both connected to each other somehow, but I just haven't had any information that could really form any kind of connection that would make sense to me. Am I now finally going to get an answer to this? But there was a village nearby where people lived. To show respect to the original inhabitants of an area was law among wandering people like Hanyus. Her clan decided to live peacefully and coexist with the villagers. The demons that arose from the swamp of Onikafuchi, and then lived on and then, with the help of Orishiro-sama, who descended from the heavens, began to live in peace with the humans of Onikafuchi. So is this the truth behind the swamp in Onikafuchi? However, their attempts to coexist didn't go so well. The villagers were too childish and immature to accept these newcomers. They strongly rejected them, and caused a terrible, tragic disaster. Hanyu said she took their form and descended upon this land in order to subdue the disaster. By their form, you mean human form. However, she just couldn't hide her horns. The forbidden ancient documents say that Hanyu descended into the Furude shrine, appearing as she does today. It also states the following. Hanyu's people can't live anywhere other than this village. They can also only live by coexisting with the villagers. The Furude Shrine's priests once rejected them, claiming that coexistence was impossible if mixing with the wandering people's blood caused the villagers to become demons. Translation: if it caused the villagers to become infected with the syndrome. But if the young heir of the Furude Shrine fell in love with Hanyu, when their child was born, the priest had to reconsider. Wait, so Hanyu was... all wandering people who cannot hide your horns. If you wish to settle in this land, if you wish to settle with our blood, then I shall consider granting your wish. However, as the demon's blood mixed with the villagers, it became hard to tell who was human and who was demon. The villagers began to cast suspicion on one another, haunted by that paranoia. Unless all of that was resolved, coexistence would be impossible. For you and us to coexist, we must lay down several laws for us to follow. They will be very strict. I am very, very sorry for imposing these upon you, who have lived in peace until now. However, as long as those rules are followed, the village will be free from demonic disaster. Very well. The rules will be followed. But much blood has already been shed in the village. The anger, sins, and corruption people cannot bear cannot be cleansed. The one law of the human world is that sins are atoned for with life. I see. If you say it's your way to let someone take on all responsibility and bury the sins with him, then we'll do that. However, when people end up pushing responsibility on each other because nobody wants to die? Exactly. That's the ugly demon in the world of man. No one will accept their own sins, but only foist them onto each other. Since they can only clear the balance with their lives, everyone refuses to pay, and the sins just keep adding up. Without cleansing them, they stagnate, and people cast them upon each other forever, doubting each other and passing them around. I see. If that is the unopposable law of this world, and you yourselves are troubled by this law, then in exchange for coexisting with us, I shall grant you a world where people do not blame their sins on each other. What kind of world is it? So long as mankind exists, they will commit sins and give rise to corruption. How could all that be erased without foisting it onto someone else? Let me bear all the sins and corruption born from man, and purify my soul. Let all sins rest not with man. If they are born upon myself, then man will not need to force them on each other. What are you saying? Are you really going to make yourself into a sacrifice? Someone has to take the sin, otherwise they won't be cleansed. That's the law of your world, isn't it? A different ancient art document also states the following. Of course, it's a forbidden one, too. Only the head of the Furude family is allowed to read it. Nobody else. Not even the other heads of the three families. It tells that unrest grew in people's minds, that the villagers' evil hearts collected in the swamp and gave rise to demons. The Furude Shrine's priest explained that the root of all evil is the demon god of the swamp, and led the young villagers there. By the swamp, they found a demon mocking the unrest in people's hearts. A demon. The young villagers fought bravely, captured the demon, and dragged it to the Furude shrine. The priest cleansed the demon god, opened her abdomen, and dragged out her organs. Jesus Christ. That happened to you, Hanyu? He chopped them up and washed them down the stream, then threw the body in the swamp. Then the people regained their sanity. Those who had been suspicious of each other became friendly, and they all shared in the joy of peace again. Oh, wait. Oh, never mind. I thought of something. If these forbidden ancient documents are real, then the object of villagers' worship, Oishiro-sama, was captured by the villagers, forced to bear all their sins, and torn to death. Plus, it's clearly written that the demons appeared after unrest grew in people's hearts. In other words, the demons were forced to bear the sin of discord that rested with man long before they arrived. Oishiro-sama was a god who took on people's sins to mend conflicts between them. People eventually came to honor her, and it's said that became the foundation of faith in Oishiro-sama. I don't understand exactly what that means, but I know one thing. When none of us humans would draw the losing straw, she offered to draw it in our stead. To prove it, we cleanse our filth by letting cotton absorb it and drift down the stream during the Watanagashi festival. There's no shame or shifting of responsibility involved. Until that system was created, we were simply demons who pushed our filth and our responsibility on each other. We could only cleanse our own sins by blaming someone else and sacrificing him by cutting open his abdomen. Hanyu took on that job. A purification ceremony without a human life. A system that forgives people for their sins. That is the origin of the cult of Oishiro-sama, which blames not people for their sins, but the curse. Those documents were sealed away. If they weren't, people would find out that the object of their faith was falsely blamed and killed by their own ancestors. Hanyu apologizes. She takes in people's sins and keeps apologizing. When people can't deal with their own sins anymore, she accepts them. When Hanyu takes over, people are cleansed, and they are allowed to keep living. Demons take on sins by becoming cotton to absorb them. They are exterminated and washed down the stream, and then the village is forgiven. They are forgiven for their sins. If that's all true, then Hanyu, or rather, Oishiro-sama, is such a tragic existence. No kidding. I've asked Hanyu about this before, and she told me the following story. 4 people are stuck on a snowy mountain cabin. They play a game where each sit in one of the 4 corners. It's a fairly well-known story. It's in the middle of winter. They're all getting sleepy. If they fall asleep, they'll die. So one of them comes up with an idea. They're sitting in the 4 corners of the room, so someone just has to walk clockwise to the next corner and wake up the person sitting in that corner. The one who just walked will sit in that corner, and the one who just woke up will get up, walk to the next corner, and wake up the person sitting there. If they keep doing that, nobody will fall asleep. People who know this story won't need an explanation, but this doesn't work with 4 people. When the first person gets up, their corner becomes empty. So after everyone takes turns, the fourth person goes to the next corner, which is an empty one. They sit down and fall asleep, so the game is over right there, and everyone freezes to death. In other words, to play this game, you need more than 4 people. You need one more person in order to be saved. People usually tell this as a ghost story. They usually say that this was actually a group of 5 people, but one was already dead, and thanks to that ghost, they're able to continue living until the next morning. Hanya once told me that she's like that 5th person. If she can make everything run smoothly by joining a circle of people, then it's very similar to how the telephone game in the mountain cabin manages to function without breaking. Hanyu can complete a circle that can't be realized by people alone. Then those people can live peacefully. She's an existence that completes a circle. Is she bothered by her horns because it reminds her of the time when she was called a demon and punished for the sins she took in? Is her subconscious still tormenting her with thoughts that those who have horns ought to be persecuted?
あの角は生まれつきです。それを意味嫌われ、いじめられたこともありましたのです。
そうなのか？そりゃますます悪いことを言っちまったな。
そして羽生はその角があるがゆえに全て生産するというとても大きなお役目を引き受け、全うし神と崇められたのです。
え？神？
僕の独り言なのです。忘れて大丈夫なのですよ。
Poor Keiichi. Nobody knows who Hanyu really is. Is she really a divine existence that descended from a higher place? Or is she simply an unlucky girl who became a sacrifice just because she had a pair of horns? Nobody knows. But this girl's blood was blended with the Furude family's blood, and that blood has descended into me. Well, let's do a little logical deduction. Considering the fact that people who are in level 5 stages of Hinamizawa syndrome, aka ones who are close to death, are able to perceive Hanyu, a supernatural existence, I don't think it would be a stretch to assume that she is likely of a divine nature, and that she simply isn't a girl that was born that was born with a pair of horns. Although, thinking about it now, who knows, maybe she had a unique blood-borne disease or something that was basically an early form of Hinamizawa syndrome. And once it, well, then again, it's airborne, right? So I feel like this second interpretation I just thought needs a little more irony now, so I'm just going to forget about it for now and say that she's likely divine. Our legends state that if the Furude family has a girl for their firstborn child for 8 generations in a row, that 8th child will be a reincarnation of our Ishiro-sama. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm that 8th generation. Is that why I was the only person who could see Hanyu? 8 generations is a very long time. Maybe that's how long it took for all the sins Hanyu assumed to be cleared. 8 represents infinity. It's a very lucky number. Often curses uttered will contain, "I'll curse you for 7 generations." But the 8th lies beyond that. In other words, 8 possesses such good fortune that it can forgive great curses and sins that spanned 7 generations. It's a number with power. It's the time Hanyu needed to cleanse all the sins she took in from the humans. Hanyu and her people simply wanted to coexist with us. But Hanyu had to become a sacrifice. Her stomach was cut open and its contents washed down the stream. Then she was thrown into the swamp. And so, the Furude family has been waiting. They waited for a very long time for her to come back. They kept our traditions alive, waiting forever and ever for her return. According to legend, the name Furude was made by adding a horn to the character for a fortune teller. The Furude family rose when Hanyu's bloodline was combined with that of human beings. Hanyu is the ancestor of the Furude family, as well as the mother of us all. When I was little, Hanyu taught me a lot more things than my mother did. It's no wonder. I'm her descendant. The curse on the clan who exorcised and buried their very own mother was finally absolved after 8 generations, what seemed like eternity. And then she met me, her descendant, the final generation of the Furude family. Sometimes when I think about that, I feel like there must be some important meaning to this hapless fate thrust upon me. But what kind of meaning could the trial I face, the trial breaking through the obstacles sealing my fate, have upon the curse that plagued Hanyu and the Furude family for over a millennium? Good question. 1,000 years is simply too long a period to communicate thoughts and intentions correctly. Hanyu has become the curse we call Oyashiro-sama. Though she originally was a means of salvation, she has become a chain that binds people. The rules about coexisting were misinterpreted as a law that binds villagers to this place, and that continued until the Meiji era. And while the village winds once again blow towards the misunderstanding of isolation thanks to a dam conflict, how does that play into my meeting with Hanyu and this motley fate we're trapped in? I haven't lived long enough to be able to understand that. The only thing I can say for sure is that the Furude family originated when Hanyu's bloodline mixed with that of humans, and the line's final descendant, me, finally met with its ancestor. The Furude bloodline bears a cursed history of placing all man's sins onto its mother and killing her. Now, the beginning and end of that line have met. Hanyu always wanted to join everyone, yet she couldn't hide her horns. Even so, she still wished to be an existence that completes a circle. It's a child's job to bury their parents. But Mother, I never heard that it's a child's job to kill and bury their parents. Don't ask, child. I'm not human. My horns are proof that I'm a demon. A demon's job is to take on the calamities of the human world. Bearing the calamities of this chaotic world and cleansing the unrest in mankind's hearts is my role. And Mother, why do you have to be the one? People's sins are people's sins. They aren't yours. Listen, child. People live with their sins. They can't live without making someone else take the blame. Nobody wants to take the blame, so they shift that responsibility around. That is a demon, the true demon disrupting the world of man. Lack of personal responsibility. By bearing it myself, man may be cleansed, and mankind can be freed from their destiny of doubt and conflict. Let all the sins, the filth, the karma, and the curse come to me. Then attack me, purify me, wash me down the stream, and throw me in the swamp. A human will not do. So it is the fate of one not human to accept that role. If a human were made to bear it, then mankind would not be freed from the demon of doubt. I don't understand. I don't understand, Mother. Mother, you have horns. Are you saying that you aren't human just because you have horns? That even if you are human, the horns make you non-human? Even if you have horns, you're human to me. My child, you're the only one who's ever said that. Even if everyone else calls me blank or blank, you'll still call me human. What is passed down in the Fruity's many forbidden scrolls, the ones unknown to even the heads of the three families. She is sealed in the altar in the shrine storage. Understanding that would probably require about as much time as I've spent repeating time. Yet once you understand that, perhaps you'll better understand the smile Hanyu wears as she innocently plays with everyone. Oh god, what happened now? I heard Mion yell in surprise. Something must have happened.
なんだどうしたんだ
羽生さんがそこでふざけてて転んで斜面を転げ落ちていったんですわ。
Well, how about that? It looks like it's your turn to tumble down the hill, Hanyu.
羽生ちゃん大丈夫
I'm sure her horns had caught on.
転がってったけど捻挫とかしてないかな
She rolled beautifully. That's just... Well, I mean, hey. It sucks that she rolled down a hill, but I mean, hey, at least she did it with grace and beauty. And that's what really matters. Anywho, as I was going to say, she's likely fine. I'm willing to bet that one of her horns caught on a sturdy branch or something and it stopped her from landing on something sharp. Hanyu had been playing on the slope and tumbled down it. There's a road just below the slope. Mia and the others went down the stairs to go get to her. Excuse me. Let's go. I hope she isn't injured. And here they are. Nurse Killjoy, and I like sticking my dick in crazy. When I got there, I saw Tomotaki-san and Takano-san. They were taking care of her.
これはどういうことなんだい？急に彼女が転がり落ちてきてね。
ずいぶん綺麗に転がってきたわね。でも頭をゴチンとやってしまったみたいだから、後でコブになってしまうかもね。
Maybe I need to watch an anime where someone tumbles down a hill or a slope beautifully, because I have no idea what tumbling down a slope beautifully even looks like.
よく冷やしておいた方がいいわよ。
羽生私たちの声が聞こえます？ほら、指は何本に見えますの？
I think she hit her head a couple times on the way down, and now her horns are bent out of shape to where they're kind of plugging her ear holes. She can't hear anything now. You okay, dear? She sounded disoriented, but didn't appear to be injured. What a relief for everyone. I bet she's just feeling dizzy from rolling.
でもよかったね。怪我がなくて。
いやはや。しかし、転がってった先に看護師さんがいてくれたなんてできすぎだね。
Yeah, it's just a shame that it has to be this particular nurse, of all people.
あら、 非番の時の私は野鳥撮影家なのよ。
And a plotter of mass genocide, don't forget that.
ねえ次郎さん。
まあね、そういうことさ。
Maybe I should start calling her genocide or Tonico or something.
まあひなみざわっこならこのくらいで怪我はできねえよな。羽生ももう立派なひなみざわの仲間ってことだぜ。
羽生ちゃんっていうの？見かけない子ね。新しいお友達？
ええ、そうですわよ。月曜日に転校してきたばかりなんですのよ。
これ何？変わってるわね。おもちゃ？
Takano-san tried to poke at one of Hanyu's horns. They'd be an interesting hair accessory, if they were an accessory.
それは羽生ちゃんのチャームポイントなので取っちゃダメなんです。
あら、そうなの？私はあまり可愛くないと思うんだけど。
Yeah, well, hardly anybody thinks you're cute either, except for I like sticking my dick in crazy. For some reason, he seems to find you charming, no matter what.
だってほら、化け物みたいじゃない？
Had to place so much emphasis on that one word that it had to take up the whole goddamn screen. She really wants to dish out some emotional pain today, doesn't she? Suddenly, Hanyu moaned as if suffocating.
高野、羽生は化け物じゃありませんです。二度と言ったら許さないのです。
そうだよ高野さん、人の趣味に悪いよ。
ごめんなさいね。決してそんなつもりはなかったんだけど。
It just happens naturally, I know. Rika-chan said it rather firmly. I'm sure Hanyu doesn't want to hear that word. Sometimes Takano-san says things in a derogatory way without realizing it herself. But I guess there are things you can't or shouldn't say. Hanyu was looking at Takano-san with a complicated look on her face. After seeing that expression, Takano-san realized she might have hurt her feelings. She apologized and left to Tomotaki-san.
大丈夫？羽生、綺麗に転げ落ちたから大して怪我はないそうです。リカ、今の人、
You have memories from the last timeline, right?
今の
For
人、
sure.
高野ですよ。高野、高野。
Hanyu repeated Takano-san's name. All of a sudden, I grew worried that she hit her head or something. Hanyu stood straight up and grabbed Rika-chan's collar.
リカ、高野です。高野、そうですよ。高野ですよ。違う、リカ。高野です。高野。覚えてないのですか？知ってるわよ。高野美代でしょ。入江診療所の。思い出せないのですか？ごめん、羽生。何の話？リカ。そんな。
This is the last one. The last one. She finally imprinted herself with the true enemy's name, while enduring the pain of her stomach being cut open. And yet she can't remember. Rika Furude has failed to inherit the memory of the fragments. Well, that certainly makes things a bit more complicated, doesn't it? This is not good. But Hanyu, you remember, right? You clearly do, so just tell him. It warms my heart to actually see him this happy. But anyway, you remember, Hanyu, so just spill the beans. Get Rika away somewhere where you two can be alone, and just tell her what the fuck is going on.
Ch.8 体重が絞れてきたつもりだったんですがね。そういう赤坂さんはこれまた見違えるくらいたくましくなったじゃないですか。
この程度には鍛えてないと体が持ちませんので。
あれ、クラちゃん、その人あの人かい？何年か前にうちに来た東京の公安の。
本田屋さん、ご無沙汰しております。その節はお世話になりました。
あんた、随分とまあ立派に成長しちゃったじゃないですか。かあ、若いっていいね。
さあさあさあ、せっかく来てくれたんです。もうお店に行っちゃいましょう。馴染みの店ですからのれん前でも入れてくれるでしょう。さあさあ行きましょう。
大井さん、いいんですか？まだ勤務時間中じゃないんですか？
何言ってんですか。東京本庁からいらっしゃられた特命刑事との特別研修ですよ。さあさあ行きましょう。ああ、ちょいと先に電話してきます。赤坂さんに比べたらカモネギみたいな連中ですがね。ちょいとメンツを揃えまして。ああ、いいところにクマちゃん、今夜バチッとポン。
大石さん、本当に変わっておられませんね。
Akasaka used to think Ushi wasn't serious enough about work, but after experiencing many different things in the real world, that preconception had completely disappeared. Ushi is that way because of his experience. It's not always best to take things seriously. In this world, sometimes being that frank can help. In Akasaka's case, people often tell him to relax more. But in Ushi's case, maybe he should straighten out a little.
さあさあ、赤坂さん、
ええ、参りましょう。
いい返事です。だいぶベテランの余裕ができてきました。そうでなくちゃ。
The old Akasaka would have thought Ushi was making fun of him, but by now he could take it as an honest assessment.
赤坂さんもずいぶん強くなりましたね。なんだかお酒じゃ勝てない気がしてきましたよ。いやー、オイルと酒に弱くなるってのは本当ですな。
ご謙遜を。それに私が強いのは情報収集が下戸では務まらないからです。ちゃんと予算を切って常に若手と特訓してますから。
Now there's a funny thought. Liquor training.
日本酒、洋酒、紹興酒。のれんをくぐることもあれば、ミラーボールのお店の時もありますよ。
そりゃいい、そりゃいい。今度ぜひ私もお家に参りますよ。
ええ、ぜひ享受してやってください。最近の若いのは、自分は生まれつき飲めないとか。私だって最初は全然ダメでしたがね。酒は飲めば飲むほどに強くなり、ますますに旨味がわかるようになるんです。
そうです、そうです。 聞いてますか、クマちゃん。
面目ないっす。これでもだいぶ強くなったんですよ。
そうだの。大石と組まされたばかりの頃はお前乾杯からウーロン茶だったからの。
それはいけない。乾杯は重要な意味があるんです。そこでアルコールを飲まないというのは、自分はこの飲み会に不服があるって言ってるようなもんなんです。だから私はそんなことする若手どもにはきっちり指導してますよ。一気飲みしろって言ってんじゃない。とにかく最初の一杯だけは中ジョッキ。
When Akasaka first came to Okinomiya, he was very nervous. But there was no trace of that tension left in him. Seeing that, Ushi realized just how much Akasaka had learned in the past few years.
よっ、赤坂さんかっこいい。いや、もう本当に頼もしくなっちゃいましたね。
I know, Akasaka's such a good cop, and such a good drunk to boot.
私にとっては定年までの残り数年でしかなかった間に、赤坂さんはこれほどたくましく成長したんですから。いやいや、老兵は去るべきだと痛感します。
そんなことはないです。私も嫌になるくらい経験がものを言う世界というのを勉強しました。力仕事や現場仕事なんかは私たち若造に任せて、大石さんのようなベテランにはぜひデスクで胸を張ってこき使ってもらいたいもんです。
Now that sounds like an insult.
ですってよ。聞いてますか、クマちゃん。
すいません、すいません。頑張るっす。
You work that desk, bitch. Work it like you've never worked it before.
大石、熊谷君も頑張っちょるぞい。めんどくさがりのお前さんに代わってよくまめに歩き回っとる。
大石さんはめちゃくちゃな人でしょ。私が大石さんと組んだのはほんの数日間だったんですが、でもね、大石さんがきっとあなたを鍛えてくれますから、最後まで信じてついていってください。わかりました。頑張るっす。でもお酒は鍛えられても麻雀までは無理っすよ。かみさんに給料を渡す前に大石さんに取られるんです。いや、麻雀も経験なんです。打った場数が強さと自信になるんですよ。後でご一緒しましょう。まずは負けない打ち方を伝授します。
大石、いい若者だの。お前さんが無茶やってた頃にちょっとだけ似とるの。
まさかまさか、私はこんな二枚目じゃありませんでしたから。
Now we're shilling his good looks too. It was unusual for Ushi to enjoy anyone's company this much. Hakasaka and Ushi only worked together for a few days. They had exchanged some holiday cards since, but that was about it. Ushi had no idea how happy it would make him to see such a greenhorn grow into a dependable cop. Ushi always thought he wanted to be active until the day he retired, but after seeing such a dependable colleague, he began to think that maybe it was time for him to step down. Ushi and Akasaka enjoyed their reunion more than they thought they would. The owner of the place was bringing the electric sign inside. All the chairs were up on the tables, and the owner's wife was cleaning the floor. There was nobody else around. Judging by the clock, it was almost 3 a.m.
フラちゃんたちは久しぶりの再会なんでしょ。ゆっくりしてっていいよ。帰る時だけ起こしてくれねえかな。鍵しなきゃなんねえから。
すんませんな、気を使わせちゃって。
There wouldn't be anything else open at such a late hour. Ushi and his colleagues still wanted to talk, so they decided to stay. Kumagai couldn't fight his sleepiness and was nodding off. They were talking about Akasaka's job. Akasaka works at a department specializing in public safety. Wushi and the others were interested in all his stories of danger and bravery.
それで実はこちらに来たらフルデリカという少女に会いたいと思っていたんです。
フルデリカってフルデ家の忘れがたみのリカちゃまですか？
忘れがたみということは彼女の両親は
Rika Furude had predicted that there would be an incident in Himazawa every year for the following 5 years. Her parents, according to her, were supposed to be killed on the 3rd year running.
ねえ、あれはお社様のたたりの3年目ですから、昭和56年ですかね。フルデ夫妻がちょいと引っかかる形でお亡くなりになりまして、赤坂さんがひなみ沢に行かれてからちょうど3年後の話です。
3年後。私がひなみ沢を訪れてから3年後の6月のことなんですか？
ねえ、そうです。どうしました？何か気にかかることでも？
Akasaka shut his eyes tightly to chase away the alcohol in his brain and try to remember the girl's prediction. He had, after all, come here to confirm it.
私が訪れたのはその翌年にダム建設の監督が亡くなられたということは、そうだ、彼は私と麻雀を打った方のはず。あの方はその後どうなさっていますか？
新聞にドーンと載ったと思ったんですが、こっちの地方だけなのかな。その翌年に作業員たちとの喧嘩で殺されてしまいまして。
Rika Furude had predicted that he'd be killed in a gruesome way, that his body would be dismembered.
その遺体をバラバラにされたということは？
なんだ、知ってるじゃないですか。その通りです。未だ右腕が見つかりませんでね。お気の毒なことです。
The following year, on the same day, in June 1980, Satoko's parents will be pushed to their deaths. Maybe it should be called an accident. A lamentable accident.
続けて確認します。さらにその翌年、監督の殺人事件の確かそうだ、聡子さんという多分女性の方だと思います。その方のご両親が転落でお亡くなりになるということは？
おや、お詳しいですね。そうです。ダムの賛成派だった北条夫妻が旅行先の展望台から転落しましてね。事故か事件か未だにはっきりしませんが。
In the following year, on the same day, in June 1981, my parents will be killed.
そして
はい、フルでリカのご両親がお亡くなりになります。ですが、どうもこいつも今一つ腑に落ちない事件でしてね。
お前さん、随分とお社様のたたり関係に詳しいの。この事件、地元の圧力であまり公にされとらんはずなんだが。
なんてことだ。
だが、いくらお前さんでも次の年は無理だろうの。何しろ4年目から秘匿捜査指定がかかっとる。
いえ、多分わかります。
In the following year, on the same day, in June 1982, Satoko's mean aunt will die. Her head will be smashed in.
その翌年ですから、つまり昨年です。先ほどの聡子さんのおばにあたる方が。
そうです。ビンゴです。赤坂さん、どうしてそんなことまでご存知なんですか？
多分私はさらにその翌年に殺される人物も知っています。
お前さん、何を言っとるんだ。第一、去年の翌年中たらそら今年のことだろうが。
I'll be killed.
昭和58年6月、つまり今月です。フルでリカが 殺されます。
Ushi and the others were at a loss for words. Akasaka had talked about the 4 mysterious incidents. Although he had been far away, he belonged to a very special unit of public safety. It could have been possible for him to find out about their secret investigations. That was why it wasn't that odd for Akasaka to mention the series of mysterious deaths, even though he had been far away from Hinamizawa. However, not only did he know about them, but he also named the next victim. Ushi and his co-workers had sobered up entirely.
赤坂さん、もう夜もだいぶ更けました。これ以上はお互いしんどいんで、単刀直入に行きましょう。今の話は一体どういう意味ですか？
はい、今の話は私がひなみ沢を訪れた昭和53年6月に彼女から聞かされたことなんです。
なんですって？
Ushi couldn't believe what he was hearing. He was left speechless.
信じられない気持ちはわかります。それを聞いた当時の私も幼い少女の気まぐれな予言遊びくらいに思いました。ですが彼女は5年目に自分が殺されることを私に訴えました。それはつまり自分を助けてほしいという明白なメッセージだったと思うんです。今回ひなみ沢を訪れた最大の目的は彼女を訪ね、本当に今でも私の助けを必要としているのかを確かめるためだったんです。
赤坂さん、私はね、連続開始事件の1年目に殺されたおやつさんの敵をどうしても年内に取りたいんです。ですから私はどんな些細な情報でも怪しげな情報でも飛びつきます。だから一応確認させてください。今の話は冗談じゃないですよね。なんかの冗談なら今のうちにそうだと言ってくださいよ。
私は真実しか言っていません。古出理香は昭和53年6月に、ただ当時の私はそれを重要な話とは思わず、それを大石さんに伝えませんでした。それは申し訳なく思います。
いや、それは無理もないぞい。そんな話突然されても鵜呑みにできん。4年連続した今だから聞ける話だわい。
Ushi must have been thinking that if only Akasaka had told him back then, he could have saved his friend. What the old man from forensics just said was right too. Ushi wouldn't have believed him back then, and his friend would have died anyway, and Ushi would have been left with regret at not being able to do anything.
そうですね。いえ、すみませんでした。しかし古出理香がどうして、
今のひなみ沢の状況は私も詳しくありません。一応当時の新聞でダム計画の無期凍結が決定されたというのは読みました。ですからダム戦争は終わって平穏な生活を取り戻していると信じていたのですが、
ダム戦争は確かに終わった。だがな、その翌年からな、通称お社様のたたりと呼ばれる連続開始事件が毎年起こるようになってな。その詳細についてはまさにお前さん。
どうやら私は彼女に大変な何かを託されたような気がしてきました。大石さん、ズバリお尋ねします。今年古出理香が殺されるのはあり得る流れだと思いますか？
古出夫妻はダム戦争当時消極的だったことを理由に後ろ指を刺されていたという話があります。それで3年目のたたりにあったというのが定説です。その流れから言えば古出理香殺しは
あり得るんです。
Ushi nodded slowly.
明日古出理香に接触を試みるつもりです。どうやら彼女に直接話を聞くしかないようですからね。
赤坂さん、それ私もご一緒させてくれませんか？古出理香の話はどうやら私にとっても重要なものになりそうです。
こりゃお前さん、なんともとんでもない土産を持ってきてくれたもんだの。わしもちょいと面白くなってきたぞい。煙に巻かれたまま終わると思ってた怪事件が解けるのに立ち会えるとは思わなんだ。
しかし疑問もありますね。どうしてこんな重要な話を私だけに打ち明けたのでしょう。助けを求めるなら東京から出張してきた私ではなく地元警察のはずなのですが。
多分地元警察を信用しきれないところがあったのでしょう。私も泥臭い人間です。リカさんの信用を得ていなかったのかもしれない。それに沖宮署には S 号の息のかかった連中も少なからず潜んでいます。
つまり東京から来た私が一番信用できた。
悔しいですが、そう
だとしたら大石さん、この件他にはない道に。
もちろんですとも。とにかく明日ひなみ沢に行ってリカさんに直接話を伺ってみましょう。話はそれからです。
Sounds like a plan to me.
信じられないわ。でもそれが真実なのね。
Oh, thank God. You're telling her what you know, aren't you, Hanyu? It was the middle of the night. Only the sounds of insects and Satoko's snoring could be heard. Rika was sitting by her favorite window.
そうなのです。リカを殺すのは高野なのです。僕もリカもはっきりと見ましたのです。リカは高野の顔を目に焼き付けようと、意識のあるままにお腹を裂かれてもなお歯を食いしばってその顔を見ていたのです。
嫌な死に方ね。毎回記憶に残ってなかったのを感謝したいわ。でもなんとなくわかる。高野の好みそうな殺し方だもの。でもわからない。どうして高野が私を殺すの？だって私は女王感染者で、私が死ねば大惨事になるんでしょ。だから入江機関や山犬たちが私を守ってくれてるんじゃないの？そのてっぺんにいる高野がどうして私を殺さなくちゃならないの？ごめん、意味のない質問ね。高野が私を殺す、それが真実なのであって、その動機なんか大した問題じゃないものね。しかしだとしてもよりによってなぜ高野なの？
Although she had just said that the motive didn't matter, Rika went back to the same question. The reason why Takano was protecting the Queen Carrier wasn't because she wanted to prevent the rest of Hinamizawa from developing the syndrome. It was because the Queen Carrier was an extremely valuable subject of her research. Then, considering that value, why did she kill the Queen Carrier with her own two hands?
敵は高野一人なの？
山犬の人たちも敵でした。入江が敵かは分かりませんでしたが、多分敵じゃなかったと思いますです。
高野と山犬が敵？冗談じゃない。私たち小娘がどう立ち向かえって言うの？無理よ。奇跡でも起きない限り、あんな奴らに私たちが勝てるわけがない。しかも綿流しは次の日曜日。私が殺されるのは22日。あと1週間ってところ。そのわずかな時間でどう戦うの？高野を金属バットで闇討ちにでもしてみる？
Well, I guess that would be one option.
意味ないわ。高野は所詮連中の一人。
Yeah, but ultimately, this whole plan is one that Takano herself orchestrated, right? I would imagine at the very least, even killing the leader Takano would cause some heavy confusion within the chain of command of the Mountain Dogs. There is a chance I could imagine that they could cancel the operation outright without the commander present. But I will also admit, by that same token, it's possible that they could continue it anyway, for whatever reason. Ultimately be a gamble, but I think it's one that's worth considering.
タカの一人を返り討ちにしたって山犬たちに取り囲まれておしまいよ。
We don't know that for sure, though.
どうすればいいのよ。どうすれば。
そんなの僕だってわからないのです。でも今までは何度繰り返したって敵の名前だってわからなかったじゃないですか。それをやっと掴んだのです。やれることがあるはずなんです。
This was the first time in a long time that Hanyu had spoken so positively. Rika was startled for a moment and realized she was losing her cool. She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. She was still confused that Takano was the culprit. Rika had always thought of Takano as her ally. There were, after all, many reasons why Takano should treat her well. Rika couldn't even think of one reason why Takano would want to kill her. Still, Takano was always thinking about bizarre things. There was no guarantee that a crazy idea of hers couldn't become a motive.
ということは富武は殺されてる。つまり富武は味方。
多分味方だと思いますです。そうですよリカ。富武に相談すればいいのです。
Well, that dick of his is stuck in Crazy's pussy real deep, so you're gonna have to pull real hard to get him out of there. Both his heads, I mean. Takano was accompanied by the Mountain Dogs because of an organization named Tokyo. So could Rika ask for help only from someone affiliated with that organization? In that case, Toмотaki was the only one she could talk to about the issue. Although, Irie might also be worth having a talk with. But then, that was why she needed to know. She needed to know why Takano wanted to kill her. Unless she could explain that, they probably wouldn't even believe her. Besides, Toмотaki was in love with Takano. He wouldn't doubt her so easily. Irie seemed to be keeping a little distance from Takano. He might be a little more inclined to believe, but as someone who was simply a doctor, he knew little about Tokyo. He might end up being useless to Rika. Then, should she call the police? No way. Definitely no way. There was no way they would believe her. If she were to make a call and say that a strange organization named Tokyo was trying to kill her, they would think she was crazy. Then what could she do? How could she save herself? The scariest people in Hinazawa were coming to kill her. How could she run from them? How could she fight them? How? How? If she had remembered the scene of Takano killing her, then she wouldn't have been so confused. Because seeing is believing. But she didn't remember. This is just what Hanyu was telling her. She didn't want Takano to be her enemy. This was a truth she didn't want to accept. So she was tempted to just say that it was all simply Hanyu's delusion.
落ち着くのですリカ。前の世界で僕たちは学んだはずなのです。覚えていませんですか？前の世界のことを。
前の世界ってあれでしょ？レナが学校にガソリンをまいて立てこもって。
No, that was the one before the last.
違いますです。その次にもう一つ世界があったのです。本当に覚えてないのですか？その世界ではあいつが 平が。
最悪の世界ね。何をやっても相談所は様子見で、聡子は数日で廃人同然。どうせ仲間の誰かが発症して鉄平を闇討ちにするんでしょ。
違います違います。そこではみんなが力を合わせて相談所に陳情してちゃんと聡子を救ったのです。
Her memories of the previous worlds must be blurring together by now. She's getting confused.
その世界でリカは圭一にあれだけ教えられたじゃないですか。奇跡は信じなきゃ起きない。
Otherwise, a miracle won't occur.
そしてみんなが信じれば必ず奇跡は起こるって。
確かに圭一が言いそうなことね。でもすごいわね。今まで一度も退けられなかった鉄平の帰宅する世界を打ち破るなんて。
その世界の圭一たちはどうやって奇跡を起こすか知ってますですか？みんなにですね、ちゃんと相談したのです。どうせダメだとか一人で悩んだりとかしないでみんなに相談したのです。だから奇跡が起こせたのです。
みんなにって圭一たちに高野のことを相談しろと？東京という怪しげな組織に狙われているから助けてって。そう
信じてくれますです。前の世界では信じてくれましたのです。なんでリカは僕が言うのを信じてくれませんのですか？
ごめんなさい。信じないわけじゃないの。羽生が見たんだからそれは真実なんだものね。自分の記憶に残らないというのがこんなにも温度差を感じさせてしまうものだったなんて。
とにかくリカと僕が2人で悩んでも何も解決できませんです。僕たち2人の力ではあまりに非力なのです。でも僕たちには武器があります。それは真実です。動機はよくわかんないけど、でも犯人は高野だって分かってます。だからこれはこれまでの世界で一番有利なスタートのはずなんです。それなのになんで最後の最後でリカだけ記憶がつながらないのです。
Hanyu ground her teeth remorsefully. She saw the truth just a short time ago, so she couldn't believe that Rika didn't remember anything. If it was something she had seen herself, she wouldn't even need a motive. But she hadn't, and that's why she couldn't understand. Why was her memory missing even when Hanyu's memory was still intact? Did that mean their long journey was about to end? Perhaps her infinitely repeating journey was already over, and this is the last world of all.
羽生がみんなにも見えて、しかも転校までしてくるなんて、なんだか変な世界だなとは思ってたけど、どうやらここはとびっきりおかしな世界みたいね。
おかしくも何もありません。ただ最後の世界なだけなのです。僕はその最後の世界でみんなと力を合わせるためにやってきました。僕はここでは傍観者じゃない、リカのみんなの仲間で味方なのです。
そういえばそうね。あんた傍観者をやめたのね。
僕はもう傷つくことを恐れて舞台に上がらないなんて嫌なのです。それを恐れずにみんなと信じる。だから奇跡が起こせる。これは昭和58年6月をかけたゲームの世界なのです。戦っているのはリカと高野。期限までにリカが敵を倒せないと自動的に負けになる。高野たちは山犬という強力な駒をいくつも持っている。少々の駒を集めたくらいではとても太刀打ちできないのです。だからリカはあらゆる人に助けを求め対等な数だけ駒を揃えなければ そもそもゲームが始まらない。このゲーム版のルールを僕たちは何度も繰り返しながら学んできましたのです。それはまるで説明書のないゲームのよう。でも僕たちは何度も学び、そしてようやく戦い方を知り、さらに敵方の駒の正体まで最初から分かっているという破格のリードがもらえましたのです。リカ、ぼんやりしてる場合じゃないのです。綿流しまであと1週間。前の世界は2週間の猶予で始まりましたのですが、今回は1週間しかない。
I'd really take everything she's saying to heart here, Rika, and just get moving.
つまりこれが最後の世界なのです。
分かったわ。私が覚えていないことの不幸を嘆くより、あなたが覚えていてくれた幸運を喜ぶべきね。あなたまで忘れていたら、この最後の世界も右往左往してるうちに終わってしまったに違いない。
Exactly.
それに圭一たちへの相談もうまく話し方を考えれば何かいい知恵がもらえるかもしれない。何しろ学校大爆発がほぼ確定したあの世界でレナと大立ち回りをして正気に戻させるという奇跡。
そうです。とにかく話せる人に相談しましょうです。僕たちだけではあまりにか弱いのです。仲間を集めどうするかを考えましょうです。奇跡の道も一歩からなのです。
しかもそれはたったの1週間でね。
Hanyu had never encouraged her like this before. She had always pretended to be a bystander. She never wanted to go through the pain of failure, so she never had expectations for anything. But now she was trying to intervene in this world so passionately and proactively. According to Hanyu, there had been another world after the one in which Reina occupied the school. Apparently, Keiichi really inspired her in that world. Rika had nothing to lose. She had to talk to whoever she thought she could trust. And whether she tried or not, she only had a very short time left. She decided to do whatever she possibly could until that time arrived. She would never again act like it was cool to sip wine pretending to be a witch as the end closed upon her.
もしもし、ご無沙汰しておりますわ。野村です。ええ、先日は詳細な資料をありがとうございました。
Wait a minute, I know this voice. You're that woman that picked up Takano in that car.
厚生省のお歴々もあなたの丁寧な資料のおかげでひなみ沢症候群の恐ろしさを理解してくださりました。
So your name is Nomura, huh?
すべてあなたと小高野先生の研究の成果ではありませんか。
She's got the creepy laugh. Definitely that same lady.
私は正当な研究が正当な評価を受けられるようにしたに過ぎませんわ。それはもちろんあなたの資料をやがては総理の手にも取らせてみせましょう。総理は一国の主、我が国で最も権力を持つ人物にあなたとそれがいかに優れた研究であり、そしてひなみ沢症候群がいかに特別なものなのか。なのにその研究をないがしろにし、無残にもあなたとあなたの祖父の論文を土足で踏みにじった現理事会、彼らがそんなあなたに朗報があります。終末作戦が終わった後、現地は隔離閉鎖され、陸自の別部門が研究を引き継ぐこととなりました。あなたはそこへ迎え入れられ、派閥や予算に悩まされることなく、心ゆくまで研究をすることができるのです。あなたの献身的努力に報いたいとおっしゃられるクライアントの行為としか申せませんわ。あなたはそこで所長の地位を与えられ、今度
Sorry, I don't mean to keep skipping over her lines.
そしてあなたは ひなみ沢症候群の研究をステップの一つにし、高野先生が求められていた本当のステージ。いいえ、これはお世辞でも何でもありませんわ。
I think you are.
あなたに対する私どものクライアントの正当な評価です。
I don't think that's what you really think.
そうですか。長電話を失礼してしまいましたわ。
I don't think you're sorry at all for taking up her time.
それでは失礼いたします。
I definitely think you'll be going now.
また追ってご連絡いたします。
The woman put down the handset of her car phone. Then she picked it up again and made another call.
内線1001をお願いします。ええ、渡辺とお伝えを。渡辺です。ええ、先日の件はつつがなく終了しました。はい。高野さんの資料は素晴らしいものです。さらに国立研究所の職員を同行させましたので、背広連中はそのまま鵜呑みに。ええ、はい。そちらも問題ありません。20日以降から敵対派閥のほとんどの閣僚は外遊、もしくは西洋で東京を離れます。はい。不確定要素はいくつか残りますが、おそらく6月23日には艦艇の堀は全て埋め尽くされているはずです。はい。ですので、現地作戦は6月22日深夜に決行。23日に総理に緊急決裁を求める日程となると思います。
So this is why the operation had to be on this specific date. It's because of all these politicians being out of the country. Thus, limiting the number of people from the chain of command in the government. And would therefore allow you people to have more influence during an emergency situation like the GHD. Am I right?
はい。当日、総理を補佐できるブレーンは全て我々側の人間です。総理は万に一つの疑問も抱かないでしょう。ええ。それは間違いなく、総理は必ず緊急マニュアル第34号に署名します。その後はアルファベットへの責任追及となり、奥の千葉派、旧小泉派は発言力を大きく失うこととなるでしょう。ええ、そうです。今村先生の復権は時間の問題です。ですわね。
All this. All these people in Himazawa are about to be sacrificed, all because of a freaking internal political power struggle. It's really fucking messed up when you think about it. If there's money to spend on developing domestic nuclear arms or the Japanese-American alliance spanning the Pacific, then it would be more profitable for our nation to spend it on ODA toward China. The 21st century will be the era of China, with their nation claiming a good portion of the world's population. Japan gets nothing out of wagging its tail for the US anymore.
全くですわ。
The 21st century is almost here, yet we're still saying that that communism is the greatest evil. Maybe we've been watching too many bad American propaganda movies. Well, to be fair, communism definitely has the largest kill record of humans throughout the 20th and 21st century, compared to every other religion and ideology and other similar movements backed by said religions and ideologies all throughout human history. I'm serious, look it up. It's kind of horrifying. The number of people that died under communist regimes.
はい、わかりました。では来週、マカオにてよろしくお願いいたします。
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could at least understand why there's a lot of people who don't view communism favorably.
私、カジノは大好きですので。はい、それでは失礼いたします。また追ってご連絡いたします。
The woman put down the handset of her car phone and took a breath. She smiled in satisfaction, then picked up the handset again.
官房長官席を。ええ、前 前里を伝える。
You go under you have a lot of different names for different occasions, don't you?
はい、私です。奥の長官。
So that's it then, huh? Well, like I said, now it all makes sense why Rika's death has to happen specifically on that date. It's to take advantage of all these political figures that are out of the country, and thus allow their group to be able to gain easy direct contact and influence over the Prime Minister during this disaster, and have him sign the emergency manual, and then have the annihilation of the village initiated, and have everything that they want to follow suit after the whole village is cleansed. All just so they can gain a lead in their internal power struggle. It's twisted, but it makes sense now. Everything's really coming together, isn't it? Not just the answers, but our final confrontation. I'll give Chapter 8 this much. It's certainly wasting no time in making this grand finale feel like a grand finale. I really hope the payoff will be worth it. Anywho, I'm gonna go ahead and end things here. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Higurashi When You Cry Kai Chapter 8. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.